And do you remember this? Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, once said that the Conservative Party is a broad church.
The Tory party is a very broad church, right? I welcome lots of people who want to subscribe to our ideals, to our values.
He was, of course, being asked by our political editor whether he'd welcome Nigel Farage into the party. Well, to swap Nigel Farage for another UKIP leader, Henry Bolton has just been denied membership of the Conservative Party. And he makes up half of our panel today. So delighted to be joined
coincidentally, I must say,
by Henry Bolton and the former Labour MP Ivor Kaplan. Henry, we're going to have to start with you. What's the story behind this? When did you decide to try and join the Tories?
Well, in my view, Ivor's going to disagree with me, I'm sure, but the priorities are twofold, immediate priorities. One is to prevent a socialist Labour victory in the next general election, and if that can't be prevented, then to retain a strong opposition to mitigate that victory. And the second thing, which is connected, is to deliver on reducing immigration. And you know, I have an extensive track record in doing precisely that and in border management, and I felt that I could use my skills, my political knowledge, my political experience and my technical experience in trying to deal with borders at a strategic level to try and help the Conservative Party. I think the Conservative Party are the only people at the moment who can do that. The Conservative Party are in government. If there's an election in October next year, we're 9-10 months away. So there is time to make an impact, should the party wish to. Now, having not been a member of any political party since 2018, I felt that, you know, there should not be a problem. I am a dyed-in-the-wool Conservative. I joined UKIP when I did because of my belief that we were better off out of the European Union. The Conservative Party was in a very different place at that time and was not an appropriate home for me. And I worked to support the Brexit campaign, the referendum campaign to leave. So now, you know, so that was the motive behind all of this, that I felt that we need to act now, we need to act decisively on the centre-right of British politics. The people to do that now are the Conservative Party. They're failing to do it. I thought I might be able to help.
Well, Henry, why do you think they rejected you then? You know, Christopher Hope mentioned high-profile defector. You know, isn't that a good enough reason as any not to have you on board?
I don't know whether a defection's quite right, because I've not left a political party to try and join the Conservative Party. But I think what this says quite clearly is that what Rishi Sunak has said to Chris Hope, that the Conservative Party is a broad church, is for the birds. And I think one of the reasons he's been saying that is because he has a Rwanda vote coming up on the Rwanda bill, and he is trying to appease the centre-right of, if you like, the real Conservatives in the Conservative Party over that vote. And I think some people want to believe him. Well, they can't. It is not a broad church. It is not a Conservative Party under its present leadership and the way it's constituted. The leadership of the Conservative Party needs to change. The constitution of the Conservative Party needs to change. The constitution at the moment, I mean, look, you know...
Well, it sounds like you would have been a bit of a troublemaker, perhaps, as a member. That's probably why they didn't. Ivor, do you think...
Does that not say at all, Emily, that... You know, I believe that the purpose of the Conservative Party, any party really, but certainly a Conservative Party, is to further the interests of the United Kingdom and the British people, to build confidence, optimism, prosperity and security for everybody living in these islands, and to preserve our history, our heritage, our culture, our institutions as the foundations on which we should, as society, can grow and evolve. It is not doing that. And I think, I honestly believe, I got no response apart from a rejection. I've contacted CCHQ 3 times asking why. I've received no response whatsoever. They've not engaged with me at all. And I can only conclude that where I want to go to, in the way that I've just described, is not where CCHQ and Rishi Sunak wants to go. If the Conservative Party are going to stand a chance in the next election, they don't need to be going after the centre ground. They need to be going after the traditional Conservative, cultural and social Conservatives.
Ivor, what do you make of this? Why do you think Conservative campaign headquarters have made the decision they have?
It's not a specialist subject of mine. I appreciate that, both of you.
But do you think they were right to...
Or Henry about that. I did empathy with him earlier, by the way, in outside. Look, it's a difficult decision for Henry, but I'm not going to say that the Tories should do this or that. It's their thing. We had all that situation, from the mid-10s with people leaving the party because of the anti-Semitism under Jeremy Corbyn, and that change that we had to make, which Keir Starmer has led on since April 2020, has allowed us to bring people back in, and people who've maybe left us, we've welcomed them back. And I would say, in a more general political thing than criticising the Conservative Party, is that I think that's where politics is right, to allow people to rejoin.
You say the Labour Party has been welcoming people back, and certainly there are high-profile cases of people rejoining the Labour Party who left under the Corbyn years.
Yeah.
There are also some pretty high-profile cases of people on the left of the Labour Party being forced out. The mayor of the North East, Jamie Driscoll, is a pertinent example. Yeah. There are many more who would align themselves on the Corbynite wing who feel like Starmer's kicked them out with not much excuse.
It's not about kicking people out. If there is a situation that you make comment on, and that comment is outside the rules of the Labour Party, whatever those rules are in most times, then you can get expelled. We have expelled, hundreds and hundreds of people, for instance, in and around where I am, just because they are anti-Semites. And those people we would not tolerate in the party. So if we have to do that, then we do it in a proper way. It's dealt with by the legal people, and then the people are expelled.
There is a lot of criticism.
Just take that one example, Tom, that you just made. That's true. But the point with that example of that particular mayor is he didn't get into the qualification for members voting. Now, that's happened all over the country while we've been selecting candidates. And that happens when you get to the last thing. Your members are going to make a decision. We don't have to have people in there who are
Is it just a little bit convenient that sometimes, and this happened in the late 90s and it's happening again now, that sometimes these selection shortlists, which are centrally chosen and then members get to vote, sometimes they seem to align very, very closely with the people right in the middle of the party. And perhaps there's been some criticism that there's not so much internal democracy anymore.
I think I might put it slightly differently. 2010, 2015, 2019, Labour completely out of the game. And we have to make decisions then that are different and change things around. I stood in four people in Hove for the candidacy in 1996, and I won. Well, that's obvious I won. But the point is that I had to go through that as well. What the rules now do is make it the same. So in the 91 constituencies in the South East, of which I have a responsibility for in the party, then that means that all the constituencies are being treated the same. And yet they all moan, by the way, that they're not. Every single constituency that there isn't a current MP moans about what they're being offered. That's how it is,
I mean, Henry, what happens next? Because, I don't know, in my mind, perhaps, I know Rishi Sunak said it's a broad church, the party's a broad church, and I can completely understand why you might be disgruntled by this decision. I don't know if there's an appeals process, perhaps you
I've asked
can
3
take it to the
times and
ECHR.
got no response whatsoever. It's interesting.
But, I mean, you clearly don't have a huge amount of... well, maybe you have respect for Rishi Sunak, but you don't rate him as a leader.
No,
so do leaders... And this is probably not Rishi Sunak's decision, of course, but is it... Probably not the best idea to have troublemakers as members who have been political in the past.
If the Conservative Party wants to deal with immigration and borders, well, I was described by Durham University as one of the world's leading experts in developing and implementing national border strategies to do just this. A previous Prime Minister put me forward for an OBE for securing borders in other countries. But outside that, look, the Conservative Party has a problem at the moment. It is really sort of almost going back to your point, Tom, I think. It's got what I would call a conservative wing, which are being called the right wing, which they're not. They're the conservative wing. And it has got what I would call a centrist wing, which are being called moderates. They're not moderate. If you know Damien Green, you know he's not a moderate. He is very, very passionate and digs his heels in incredibly firmly. So there's nothing moderate about him.
Henry, might there be an interesting point of view here, which might not be the immediately obvious one, which is that people of your expertise and position are welcome in the Conservative Party, but the Conservative Party might not want the sort of history that you come with, having led UKIP, the profile of that, and frankly the way in which you were forced out as UKIP leader as well.
Yeah, indeed, which was partly the doing of the Conservative Party. And I myself, there is absolutely no allegation against me that stuck. None. I never said anything that was out of order, whether you call it racist or anything else. I have never written it. I've never uttered such words. And they know that.
But there was the person you were associated with who said some colourful things.
And I removed that person from the party. That person apologised. That's a matter for them. As I see it, and fair enough. But that, even if you take that as a rationale, that was back at the beginning of 2018. Okay, we are now 6 years down the road, and we have priorities in this country which I feel that I can contribute towards, and I feel that I've always been a Conservative. I joined UKIP, as I said, because I was passionate about leaving the European Union. The Conservative Party was in a very different place at that time on that issue. And I felt absolutely passionately that there's something that's still missing, which is no politician, no leader has stood up and provided a vision for the United Kingdom post-Brexit. This is where we want to be 20, 25 years from now, for example, and this is the trajectory we need to follow to achieve that. So that's something that I was passionate about trying to deliver. I kicked out, effectively, 6,000 members who were anti-immigration, anti-Islam and nothing else. I incurred the wrath of the National Executive of UKIP for doing it, because they were tending that way. None of them supported me in the leadership election, although the members did. So I was fighting a battle with them. So I was fighting.
Reform want you, Henry?
Ask Richard Tice. But no, I believe that at the moment the Conservative Party are the only people that can stop Labour from winning the next general election, and they are right now the only party, because they're in government, that can deal with immigration and deal with some of the serious border issues and other issues that we've got. They're in power now.
I wonder, Ivor, is there an issue here? We're focusing a lot on what's going on in the right of politics. All the while, the Labour Party has a higher vote share, if we believe the polls, than Reform and the Tories put together.
Yeah.
What's going on there? Might the Tories perhaps need to look more at why people are looking towards Keir Starmer? Or is it just sort of, as some people allege, that while everyone else scraps, he can stand still and win by default?
Well, I don't think it's going to be by default. I think there is a genuine view in large parts of the country now, and we've seen it in by-elections, for instance, in the last 6-9 months. And I think that shows that Labour has a saying with those sort of groups of people who, as I said earlier, if you look at the Liberal Democrats, obviously if we're in second place in a seat and the Liberal Democrats are in third with maybe 20% of the vote, then that's where we focus our aims and our ambitions in order to try and win those seats. That has succeeded. By-elections are one thing, the general election is a completely different one. And as I've said before on here, not a single vote has been cast yet in the general election. We have to be conscious of that. There is time still in that, whether it's in May or October. And do I think Labour will win? Yes, I have every belief that Labour will win the election.
Now, we're in our final minute, and Henry, I know you wanted to get a little word in.
Just very briefly, because Emily asked, what next? Well, I'm going to continue to fight for conservative politics, social, cultural conservatism in the United Kingdom, and for furthering the interests of the United Kingdom and the British people writ large. And that includes preservation of our culture, our heritage, our way of life and our institutions. So to adapt and grow upon. But I think it's important also to note, because we're talking about democracy, that there is a problem with the Conservative Party already before this, of course, this is minor in comparison, that they appointed a leader of the Conservative Party without even referring to its members. The constitution of the Conservative Party needs to change.
Well,
because if you can't respect democracy within your party, how can the public...
This is something that comes up time and time again in the inbox,
Correct.
that's for sure. We've got